Hey there, boys and girls, Banjo here, and welcome to my 1,000 subscriber Draw My Life video. I put out a request to see what you guys wanted to see when I reached this far, and I had an overwhelming response of people that wanted to see me do this. So, without further ado, let's get started. Let's see, other than my parents, I have one sister who's 4 years older than me. I was born on March 11th, 1989. I don't remember too much about my birth because I never really talked to my parents about it, but I'm pretty sure they'd confirm that an enormous explosion of awesome happened over the hospital that day. The earliest memory that I actually have, however, I was laying down on an apartment floor looking up at what looked like a remote control red and white airplane that was hanging from the ceiling when my mom picked me up and brought me downstairs to do the laundry. I'm not entirely sure if this is a real memory or not, but I can picture it pretty well, so I'll just say it is. I was told shortly after I began to walk, I tripped over a rocking chair and slammed the back of my head into a wood stove and had to get staples in my head to close the wound. So that's probably what's wrong with me now, just in general. Well, that and I nearly drowned like several times in my life. But anyways, I lived in a trailer park till I was about 6 years old. I don't remember a whole lot, but some of my memories include my dad fighting off a snapping turtle that was the size of a manhole cover with a broom. It was just kind of sitting in our backyard. We kind of lived at the back of the park, and there was like a swamp that was right next to the wood line in the back. And I just assumed that it came from there, but whatever it was doing in our yard, I have no idea. Other memories would be my friends and I kind of invented a sort of market to buy and sell Lego pieces to each other as a way to kind of incorporate fair trade. We did this with like change and everything. We would just kind of set up a bunch of Lego pieces in front of us and put little price tags on them like 5 or 10 cents. It worked out pretty well and it was actually kind of cool. Also, I remember watching the horror movie I Know What You Did Last Summer with some neighbor kids when I was like 5, and I remember thinking the movie was absolutely hilarious. We then moved to the house my parents are still living in, just sometime around 1995, and I lived there till I was 18. We had a neighbor named Steve, also, who ended up blind due to an unfortunate fishing firework-related accident, and he actually became my babysitter. I didn't even really think about that until now. My parents entrusted their like 7-year-old child with a blind man. I mean, I wasn't the worst child ever, but I certainly wasn't the most well-behaved. Oh well, I mean, I'm still alive, so whatever. Not a whole lot happened, to be honest. I didn't really have the most exciting life growing up. I just lived in a nice little neighborhood with nice people. This is also around the time when I was babysitting Dylan, the boy I talked about in my 500 subscriber video. Then one summer morning, after I graduated high school, my aunt showed up, knocked on my window, right in the morning, and just straight up asked me if I wanted a job. I mean, I agreed, cause I wasn't really doing anything, like, at all. I hadn't had a job or anything at that point, so I was just like, yeah, sure, I could use the money. And, I was sent to Detroit, Michigan to be trained to work in a cell phone store as a service tech. After I finished my training, I worked for a bit in a store in Detroit as well as a few others while I was still kind of doing my training thing, but once that kind of whole thing worked out, I ended up moving to the store that my aunt owned and shortly became the manager. This job and the relationship I was in at the time motivated me to finally get my license and drive. Because I never really had a need to drive up until then, and I eventually got the car with the money I made from that job. It didn't last long, though, because I ended up hitting a deer full speed one night coming back from my girlfriend's house as it jumped over a guardrail in front of me. Like, before the deer even hit the ground, I hit it with my car, so I didn't have any time to react. I actually didn't even hit my brakes until after I hit the deer. Unfortunately, it ended up totaling my car. So I was forced to move in with my aunt in order to get to and from work. It wasn't long after that my relationship ended and the store went out of business, probably due to its location. We didn't get a whole lot of clientele, unfortunately, and I was forced to move back to my parents. So, with no job and no car, I decided to enroll in college and move in with my sister, who lived about 5 miles away from the campus I enrolled in. And I walked to and from college every day and started applying for work in town. But then she wanted to move, so we ended up moving out of town to a bigger house. So she had to drive me to and from class, and unfortunately, since I didn't have a car and no free transportation, I couldn't find a job because I was restricted too much. At some point, one of my best friends, Josh, told me to apply where he worked, and where it happens to be where I work now, which I did, and I got hired in almost immediately. I rode with him to and from work for a bit till I could afford my own vehicle, which was perfect because as soon as I did, he quit. The only problem was my sister lived well over an hour away from the place. So instead of living with her, I decided to couch surf for a few years. So I would stay at friends' house, here and there for a few nights, or if I had no other place to stay, I would just sleep in my car. Then one day I had a chat with one of my best friends, Adam, his dad, who told me I could live with him so I could stop couch surfing. So finally, having a place to call home, I actually had to quit college because my job had me working 4 10-hour days a week. So I couldn't keep up with school anymore, and I now had bills to pay, so I needed the money more, unfortunately. I also ended up rolling my car on the way home from work one day with my friends in it because some big idiot decided a stop sign was optional, and I swerved to avoid hitting them. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but my car was still messed up for a bit, actually pretty much totaled. One of my friends, Cameron, who was in the car at the time of the accident and was also working with me, had a brother who was a mechanic who fixed my car for me, and I was infinitely grateful. I eventually got a new car and moved in with one of my best friends, Sean, who lived next to my parents, like literally next door, because it was closer to work, but less than a month later, I was rear-ended by somebody going full speed as I was trying to turn into my driveway. My car was totaled, another car totaled, and my rotary cuff in my left shoulder was messed up from the seatbelt. The accident was so bad that the contents of my trunk were no joke in the passenger seat. I was out of work for about 6 weeks while I was healing from the accident and looking for a new vehicle, and I unfortunately was forced to move into my parents since I didn't have any income coming in. But since it was next door, it wasn't that big of a deal. I just had to, live with them. It was around this time, Sean actually introduced me to Let's Plays and NormalBoots.com. We even came up with a plan to start a channel together. We started planning and investing in equipment, but before we could officially start one, I started going back to work, and then I moved to a house with my friend Josh when he moved back from California. While I was living there, I took the time to invest in more equipment and started planning to make a channel again. However, we were barely in that house for a year when the owners decided to sell it, so we were forced to move out, where I moved in with my friend Adam's mom this time. While living there, I bought a new computer and more equipment and started recording videos, but at the time I was too self-conscious to actually upload them, so I still didn't make my channel. Again, I ended up moving back to my parents shortly after, mainly because they needed a little help with their bills. And it was around that time I actually started my relationship I'm in now. After about a year living there, I got into a fight with my dad and moved down the road to my friend Brandon, and my girlfriend moved in with me this time. My friend Sean and I started a Let's Play channel, and I started my channel I have now. Shortly after, however, my dad suffered a major stroke, and it caused my mom to have a mental breakdown. So my sister and I took up the responsibility of taking care of their house and such while they were still in the hospital. And when they finally came home, we took care of them and brought them to and from doctor's appointments. Once things started to stabilize, though, my girlfriend and I moved to the apartment I live in now, and I started focusing a bit more on my channel, and I decided to make reviews instead of Let's Plays. Around mid-February earlier this year, I proposed and got engaged, and well, the rest is yet to come. So, I guess that's pretty much it. Hey everyone, I really hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. I cannot thank you all enough for the 1,000 subscribers. I know it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but to me, knowing that there's over 1,000 of you guys out there that find my channel worthy enough to subscribe to, that's just, it's a fantastic feeling. So thank you all so much. I cannot begin to tell you all how much I appreciate you. Everything, you know, watching the videos, subscribing, commenting on the videos, or just talking to each and every one of you, you know, on social media. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling, you know, so thank you all so very much, and I am looking forward to making content for you all for a very long time. So, again, thank you so much. I love you all. Find my content. God damn it, Leroy! No! You're moving my camera, you're pissing me off, stop rubbing up against shit, go out here, bug mom.